You all probably know about starch, which is a complex carbohydrate found in fruits, vegetables, and grains. Starch basically is a polymer or polysaccharide, which means it's a large molecule that has several glucose molecules in the form of a long chain. And plants store the glucose they produce through photosynthesis in the form of starch. And when we consume such starchy foods, then this not only gives us energy but also provides vitamins, minerals, and several other nutrients. Starchy foods are major source of carbohydrate in our diet. But for a diabetic person, they need to moderate their consumption of starchy foods. Often, diabetic person is advised to restrict or limit the intake of foods, starchy foods like potatoes, rice, etc. But you can still enjoy such foods without causing much harm. And in fact, these foods, if consumed in a certain way, then it can help in managing diabetes. How? Let's see. Based on their nutrient composition, starch is divided into three groups: easily digestible starch, slowly digestible starch, and resistant starch. Rapidly digestible starch are those which are cooked, like cooked potatoes, bread, etc., which are easily digested and converted into glucose, and they enter easily into the bloodstream. Secondly, slowly digestible starch are those starch which are found in whole grains like cereals, brown rice, quinoa, etc., where it has a complex structure, so it takes time to get digested, and thus it converts into glucose slowly. And the third category is the resistant starch, which escapes the whole digestion process and enters into the large intestine directly. And today's topic of discussion is this resistant starch, because this has a significant role to play in managing diabetes. In general, foods that we consume gets digested in the small intestine and it gets absorbed there. But in case of resistant starch, this particular starch escapes or resists the digestion process and straight away enters into the large intestine and feeds the gut bacteria. Just like fibers, such resistant starch enters the large intestine and it gets fermented through the gut bacteria and converts into short chain fatty acids. These short chain fatty acids have several health benefits, like it protects from digestive diseases, certain type of cancers, and can also reduce inflammation. Several studies have found that this resistant starch can help in managing diabetes or preventing people which are at risk of developing diabetes. Now, how is it possible? Before knowing that, let's know about certain facts. In a 2019 review on 15 clinical trials, it was found that when the diet is supplemented with resistant starch, then it helps in lowering the fasting blood glucose level, fasting insulin level, and also lowers the insulin resistance with people having type 2 diabetes and obesity. Research suggests that one should consume 30 to 40 grams of such resistant starch on daily basis, which helps in reducing the fasting blood glucose level, and only 10 gram of resistant starch per day helps in lowering the fasting insulin level. So, in order to incorporate such resistant starch in your diet, we can include foods like green or unripe banana, plantain, whole grains, and legumes such as brown rice, quinoa, lentils, chickpeas, beans, peas, nuts, seeds, etc. in our diet. But here processing method which is used commercially or in domestic level to reduce the particle size affects the resistant starch content of a particular food. Similarly, cooking or heat, if it is applied to such foods, then it can also alter the resistant starch content. For example, when we cook potato, then the heat used for cooking purpose opens up the starch molecules in those potatoes, and this exposes starch molecules into the digestive enzymes, and it gets digested easily and converts into glucose. But if after cooking the potatoes we let it cool down or chill it, then these starch molecules closes up, and it makes it unavailable for digestion, and straight away it goes into the large intestine and acts as prebiotic. So same thing happens in case of rice as well. Therefore, in order to incorporate this beneficial resistant starch in our daily diet, there are 5 ways to do this. Firstly, foods like rice, potato, pasta, beans, after cooking, they should be allowed to cool and refrigerate it overnight and consume it next day. You can reheat such foods after taking out from refrigerator, because reheating doesn't decrease the resistant starch in those foods. Secondly, in case of oats, instead of cooking and consuming it, you can go for overnight oats, which is put oats in a bowl along with yogurt, milk, or some other non dairy milk of your preference, and let it stand in the refrigerator overnight and consume it next day. Thirdly, go for lesser processed varieties of grains, because it contains more amount of resistant starch. Fourthly, include seeds like chia seeds, flax seeds in your daily diet, because this not only contains essential fats and other nutrients, but it also has a fair amount of resistant starch. But in case of consuming such seeds, you need to know the exact quantity, for which you can always consult with a qualified dietitian. And the fifth point is, instead of using wheat flour for thickening or as thickener, you can go for green banana flour, plantain flour, cassava flour as thickeners to thicken your soup or curries, which has resistant starch. Finally, keep 3 things in mind. Firstly, for a diabetic person, we need to consume starchy or carbohydrate rich foods in moderation. And what amount of resistant starch in what form should be included in your diet, that should be told to you by a qualified dietitian. So you can always take their advice, because everybody's body reacts differently to different kind of foods. Secondly, while consuming such starchy or carbohydrate rich foods, instead of consuming them in large quantities at one go, you can distribute it throughout the day in several meals. And also, such foods should be accompanied by lean protein or healthy fats, which helps in reducing its glycemic index as well. Thirdly, just like fibers, such resistant starch can cause bloating or gas formation. Although resistant starch gets fermented slowly, but yet if you find such problems, then always consult with your dietitian or doctor. And to conclude, you should always remember that keep monitoring your blood sugar level on regular basis, especially when you incorporate any new food into your diet, so that you can get to know that how it reacts and how it affects your blood sugar level, and do it under expert supervision. डायबिटिक पेशेंट्स को आलू चावल जैसे स्टार्ची फूड कम खाने की सलाह दी जाती है, क्योंकि ऐसे खाने जल्द ही डाइजेस्ट होकर ग्लूकोज में कन्वर्ट हो जाता है। पर ऐसे खाने को भी आप कंट्रोल पोर्शन में खा सकते हो, जिसके लिए इसे एक बार चावल, आलू या फिर पास्ता, बीन जैसे खाने को पकाने के बाद उसको ठंडा करके रात भर फ्रिज में रख के नेक्स्ट डे थोड़ा गर्म करके खाने से इसमें रेजिस्टेंस स्टार्च नामक एक सब्सटेंस फॉर्म होता है जो ग्लूकोज में तब्दील ना होके ये सीधा लार्ज इंटेस्टाइन पहुंचता है और प्रीबायोटिक का काम करता है, जो हमारे सेहत के लिए हेल्पफुल होने के साथ साथ ये हमारे ब्लड ग्लूकोज लेवल को भी मेंटेन रखने में हेल्प करता है। इसके साथ साथ कुछ और फूड आइटम्स जैसे कच्चा केला, साबुत अनाज जैसे ब्राउन राइस, क्विनोआ, साबुत दाल, बीन्स, मटर, नट्स, सीड्स में भी रेजिस्टेंस स्टार्च पाया जाता है। तो ऐसे रेजिस्टेंस स्टार्च को आप डेली डाइट में इंक्लूड करने से इसका बेनिफिट आपको मिल सकता है। पर ऐसे खाने आप किस मात्रा में कैसे अपने डाइट में इंक्लूड करें, उसे जानने के लिए एक क्वालिफाइड डाइटिशियन की सलाह लेना ज़रूरी है। डायबिटिक डाइट के बारे में कुछ और जानकारी के साथ जल्द ही मिलेंगे। थैंक यू।